I did this course that you're doing in 2007. That's an awfully long time ago. Yeah, but it was a great experience. We were a group of Icelandic students doing a master's program in Icelandic literature, and we took this course together. And we really, really enjoyed it, and really inspired me. I haven't really been working within this. We were mostly focusing on manuscript culture, and I haven't really been working within that culture since, but it really sits with me. And a lot of the things that we were doing, they were really important for me, also because I'm a local, and we're focusing, of course, on this this area here. I live on a farm 5 kilometers away from here. I also have a home in Reykjavik. I work at the University of Iceland, like Viðar said, so I spent maybe most of my time in Reykjavik, but me and my wife, we stay here in yeah, probably like this year, probably stay here for 4 months, I think. So that's something we really enjoy, spending time in both places. And I'm going to tell you a few things about a research center that we call HULDA. And it's a fairly recent establishment. It's focused on environmental humanities. I probably don't need to spell out to you what we mean by that. Viðar has probably already done that, right? Yeah. What the environmental humanities? Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
Mind a little bit.
Yeah, there's a slide on that, so I will maybe tell you a bit, but it also touches on our goals with the center. So this research center, the idea is that it is a platform for cooperation between 3 entities, or mostly 2. First of all, Svartakot, they are hosting you now, so you know everything about them. And then University of Iceland, more specifically, it's going to be a University of Iceland research center. The university already has, I think, 11 research centers that are located around the island. So this is going to be, I think, number 12. And there's going to be 2 research centers basically located here, operating under the name of HULDA. So it's going to be like a shared platform for these centers. And then the third unit that I didn't put on the slide is the local municipality that is very helpful and they have been very interested in this project, and they have partly funded 2 positions that we have already secured. So there's going to be at least two positions operating at this research center at HULDA. Guðrún and Sigurlína are now sharing one of them, and the University of Iceland just recently advertised for the academic position, and we're happy to share. I think we can share the news that we got 5 really good applications. So that's really
terribly good.
Really good. Actually, better than we hoped for, I think. Yeah. At least me. So we're very happy about that. So hopefully, in like I don't know, 2-3 months, there will be another person working here, doing academic research. The main goals are interdisciplinary research on the environment in a broad sense. Based within the humanities, but we're not strictly limited to the humanities. We think of it in a broad sense. I'll come back to that later. And secondly, we find it very important to focus on connecting or creating a link between the academia and academic work and the local community. Mm. So we want to build a bridge between the academia and the local community and focus on dissemination of knowledge and research findings, and creating this kind of conversation between the people who live here and know probably more than the academics do about most things when it comes to environment and nature. You know the location. You've been staying here, right? Gilagil. And this is just to focus on where we are located now. And this is now one municipality. They have merged now about 1 or 2 years ago. So that makes certain things easier for us to think of this as one area of where we operate. And we find Svartakot, of course, is partly based in Bárðardalur, or mostly based in Bárðardalur, but we will have our main station here in the Myvatn area. And this house that you are in now, this building, is probably the key behind the research center, because having the idea of wanting to create a research center in the middle of nowhere. Oh, okay, we're not in the middle of nowhere, but like in the countryside in Iceland is maybe a crazy idea, but you can always find people to do this work, and you can always find ideas. But problems so often come with practical things like housing. So this opportunity came a few months or weeks, I think, after me and my wife have this. She's a historian, and we work together a lot. And we have been talking about how great it will be to do something like this, to get the university to operate here somehow. And I'm sure a lot of people have also had this idea. But then suddenly, when we had just been kind of casually discussing this, not really expecting it to become something, this house or this building was bought by the state, by the Icelandic state. It used to be a primary school, my primary school. I went to school probably just right here where we were. I learned most of the things that I know probably in the first 10 years of my primary school education here. But then it was a hotel for many years. And then the hotel was sold. And thankfully, the government decided to buy it and join here under one roof a few institutions that focus on environmental issues. Vatnajökull National Park operates here. The Environment Agency of Iceland also operates here. And it's very practical for these two units to be in the same building. The Myvatn Research Station, have you been there already with Árni Einarsson?
No.
No, okay.
Well, he's not around, so we won't be there.
Okay. But that's the Myvatn Research Station has a long history. They've been operating here in the area, mostly doing research on the lake and the biodiversity of this area. So they will be partly operating here as well. And then we thought this is an excellent place for humanities environmental research center, because there are so many connections between these institutions and units. And as you can see, this is an open workspace. We can walk around a little bit later. So this is one of the workspaces, the biggest one. There will be other workspaces, but they're all based on this idea of open workspaces where people don't really own their desks. They just come and use whatever is free at the moment, but they have like shelves and places where they can keep their stuff. And then there will be a shared coffee room. It's not ready yet, but I think that's also a very important thing, that people can join or meet each other for coffee, even though they work for different institutions. And then there's the biggest part of the house is going to be revolutionary, I think, visitor center, because they're designing now a new exhibition where they educate guests here about everything, basically, regarding the volcanoes and the nature and everything. So this is a hub where tourists come, people working for different institutions And we thought that this is an excellent place for an academic and other people who want to help building this bridge between the academia and the locals where they can work. And also just to add, actually, you see, this is a picture taken from up there. We are sitting in here. And this part here was built when it was a hotel. It was the breakfast room, I think, and the restaurant. You're not allowed to build anything like this anymore because it's so close to the lake. So the scenery from out here is just amazing. So this is like I would say that it's a kind of like a treasure, actually. What do we mean by humanities? You probably have you been talking a lot about this?
No.
Okay.
I knew you would good to say, so
Yeah.
I just had one quite aggressive introductory lecture the first day.
Quite aggressive.
And so they got that kind of a taste of environmental humanities.
Okay.
So
Okay. You got the aggressive with that lecture. Yeah.
aggressive, okay. Mildly.
We are just basically we like to think of humanities in a broader rather than narrower sense. Basically, that's what we mean. So I just took this quote from Britannica, but there are many similar online and in books. So we think of the humanities as those branches of knowledge that concern themselves with human beings and their culture, or with analytic and critical methods of inquiry derived from an appreciation of human values and of the unique ability of the human spirit to express itself. In other words, we are concerned with languages, literature, art, film, history, philosophy, culture, critical thinking in general, folklore, anthropology, archaeology, etc., etc. And as you probably know, some of these are very kind of traditional humanities fields of knowledge, but some of them are, sometimes located within social sciences or something like that. But we don't want to draw a strict line. We also think humanities have so much in common with the social sciences and other branches and other spheres of academic research that we don't want to exclude anything, basically. So even though this is a humanities research center, we would and do appreciate working with people from social sciences, natural sciences, etc., etc. What do we think of when we say environmental humanities? We also speak sometimes of nature or natural humanities. We are thinking about interdisciplinary research on the environment from a humanities disciplinary perspective. That's just the simplest way of putting it. And what does that mean? What could that look like? For example, there have been done very interesting studies on the cultural impact of volcanoes in Iceland, in literature. That is, of course, we have a lot of many research on volcanoes, but studying how literature represents and deals with and discusses volcanoes and eruptions is a very interesting thing to explore, which has been done quite recently. Then there are many publications from people who have been working within Svartafjord, for example, and the network they have created. For example, this paper on water and sustainability in the Lake Myvatn region. And then I just took one random example of from 2008, where Jin writes about eco-nationalism and post-colonial nature. You see, this can basically be, I'm not going to say anything, like you can basically find a humanitarian point of view, I think, on everything that is worth exploring on the environment, I think. And it's very important not to forget the humanities perspective.
Can I ask
Yeah.
what you like? It's pretty recent that this has been termed environmental humanities, or what do you think? How?
Vera knows everything about this.
Or what?
What?
The environmental humanities, like in 2007 and 2009, were you working within that framework, or was it not? Had it not been formed then? Like in sort of the.
Yeah. Now I actually, that's actually a good question because now I remember I have to clarify. This is actually not my field. But I want to turn my research towards this field. What I'm telling you about now, and I'm actually not working for this research center. I work for the University of Iceland as a literary scholar, teach Icelandic literature there. And like Vera said, I could have maybe applied for this position that we have created here, but now I have already my dream job, so I'm not gonna do it, at least not for now. So what I'm like, my position here in this, when I'm telling you about this research center, is like I'm telling you about it from the perspective of a person who was participated in founding it, establishing it. So I'm not an expert on environmental humanities. Vidar is the expert on environmental
I can
humanities.
tell you one thing, when we started the Svartagöt project in, let's say, the period 2005 to 7 in the initial years, I had hardly heard about environmental humanities as such, I was just in the beginning phase of my rehabilitation as a scholar, and so the original agenda of the Svartagöt project was to look into or research the relations between humans and nature, which of course is environmental humanities.
Exactly. And Skule is also going to tell you probably many interesting things later about that field and his research there. And like I said, we also often call it, we actually prefer to call this natural humanities, nature humanities. I don't know how it's best to put it in English. Mostly just to kind of underline that we're talking about man as a part of nature, basically, not just the environment. But what does the research center do? Obviously, environmental humanities research projects. And the bridge, we call it the bridge, this connection between the locals and the academia that I told you about. An example, we started or introduced the idea of HULDA last year with quite a successful, I think, conference or seminar, big seminar here in September. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can see a bit of my documentation on our Instagram, the Svartagöt Instagram. I think I put it in highlights.
Mm-hmm. So there we got academics and locals to talk about diverse topics, really in relation to the environment and the nature here, but also in a broader perspective. And I think it was very successful, and it was really nice because we go as academics, we go to a lot of conferences that are quite heavy, this was heavy in the sense that we got a lot of information. It was long and but it was, I think, more relaxed than most other conferences that I've been to, because we were creating this kind of connection, this kind of conversation, instead of thinking of knowledge as something that you just have to absorb, that was my feeling, at least. And these kind of events, we want to focus on these kind of events, not just big conferences, but also like smaller events where we can maybe get a person, an academic or a local, to talk a little bit about what they've been doing or something, and people can attend and ask questions and have coffee, and just a nice time together. And then obviously the people who, especially the academic who will work here, will be applying for funds and creating projects for students. We also now have 5 people working for us. How many were they in the end?
The students.
Yeah, the students, yeah.
I think
Four, yeah.
students.
So we actually got a quite generous funding for a summer job for students, and they've been working now with interviewing locals, people here around here about their emotional connection with the nature, mostly the highlands. That's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of that. Why did we do this? I've already touched upon a few of these things. The University of Iceland operates 11 research centers around the island. Why not here? That's a basic question. And Svartakot has already been working here and doing a great job in environmental humanities research, obviously, but also in connecting and creating a network abroad, an international network of scholars. And also, obviously, these courses like the ones that you're taking now have created a lot of knowledge and experience in this field. So we already had local experience with this kind of thing, and we thought that it was a perfect match to match the local grassroots center with the University of Iceland, the biggest university in Iceland. Humanities research outside Reykjavik is just something that we feel that needs to be enhanced. Everything here in Iceland, when it comes to, basically everything is very Reykjavik centered, as you probably know from your countries. It often happens with the big cities. Then there's also a lot of knowledge that has been created both by locals and also by academics in different fields. Knowledge that is kind of connected to this area, and we thought that it would be interesting to see if we could make this knowledge more accessible, maybe connect spheres of knowledge that have not been connected before, maybe. For example, there's been so much done on the geology of this area, for example, all the volcanoes and everything, and we thought, could we not maybe get artists and humanities scholars and students to work with this knowledge and see if we can create something new, maybe. And then there's the tourism. We will see what happens in this field. It kind of depends on the interests of the people who will be working here in the future. But one of the opportunities here would be to work with cultural tourism, create something for tourists, both Icelandic and visitors from abroad, to represent and share knowledge of the cultural environment here. Because interestingly, even though this is a very popular tourist spot, there is very little cultural tourist information available to those who just come here on a bus or their own car.
We also have the term academic tourism for course like this.
Yeah, academic tourism is also something that you are already quite experienced in, actually, and could be very exciting. This is the last slide, I think. Just want to finish with something that is maybe not often counted as an important part of a research center, but I think it is here. We have these two old local community centers. One here in Skjolbrekka, just a few hundred meters this way, and then Kiðagil, which you know. And the research center is connected to both of these places and has access to them. And I think it's really important to have access to places like this where you can have conferences and meetings. And also in the area, there are so many guest houses and restaurants. So there's plenty of opportunities to organize conferences, courses, not just during the summer, but also during the winter. Get people to come over. I was thinking, for example, there are opportunities for us who work in Reykjavik at the university there, to organize courses that include staying here for a week, maybe, or something, doing a project here. And then we have this building here where we are now, and these two local community centers are very important when it comes to organizing something like that. So I think we are very lucky. That was it, I think, yeah. So I'm open to any questions. And I also would like to walk with you a little bit around the building and show you what it looks like.
You can also tell us a little bit about your research.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And also I would love to hear what you think about this crazy idea to establish a university research center here in the middle of nowhere. Is it something that you heard about before? Do you have any ideas about what we can do? You know, anything? That would be interesting. Yeah.
Well, I can only say that I currently live in Australia, and I feel like most people I come from the more ecological side, maybe, but everybody strives to go as far out of the big cities as possible.
Okay.
And that's where the exciting stuff takes place. Like, so most of my fellow PhD students, they all go as far away as possible, somewhere out in the bush, really remote areas. And almost nobody wants to stay at the research centers that are really close to the big cities,
Okay.
like Melbourne, Sydney, and so on. So I find this super exciting, and I would hope to be up for one of those things.
This is interesting. Do you think it's a fairly recent? Because here we've had this, there's a really long history of people who want to educate themselves and do something in that relation. They go to Reykjavik or Copenhagen or some cities. I'm just curious.
Are those people then people who originally are from the countryside, move to Reykjavik,
Yes.
and then don't want to move back?
Yeah.
Because I feel like maybe a lot of people again grow up in the bigger cities, and that's more and more people nowadays in the urban environments. They are maybe more excited about actually going out and seeing something else, while people who actually grew up in this area might not be as excited about it, and maybe more excited about actually seeing the big city and staying there and getting to know that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the contrast.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. I hope that we get a lot of people interested in moving to the smaller areas, local rural areas here.
I could even see, I'm originally from Germany, but I could see a lot of people in Germany are really excited about Iceland, for example, as Icelandic culture, the Icelandic environment. I could see a lot of people signing up for a program like this here, or to research or a thesis here, for example. And again, that would be rather keen, I believe, actually going somewhere where it's rather remote, and they would feel like that's kind of the genuine Iceland and not like another international city breaking.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it perhaps possibly sort of a humanities, hard sciences divide,
Yeah.
Where, more of your research is in the countryside, more of it is in the
That might certainly be true. I don't have enough contact with like the humanity side. And a lot of my colleagues, but they study them, they study frogs, they study certain animals, vegetation, and that's probably more exciting in a non-urban space.
I find this interesting, especially maybe now, because we've had, like I've told you, 5 really nice applications for a job at the center. But I think most of these people who have applied, they are Reykjavik based and their families are in Reykjavik. So our concern is also they might be interested in the job, but are they really willing to take the step and move here? That's going to be another question.
I'm curious. I'm curious to hear about your previous research. I was looking for your dissertation and I just found the introduction, but there's only 30 pages of it. The rest of it seemed very interesting.
I can send it to you if you like.
Yes, please.
No problem.
And Vidar was saying about how you were thinking to do research on the Highlands as a queer space, related to like supernatural, preternatural beings, and this kind of thing. Could you say more about that?
I think that that's my, I think, way of joining my previous and my primary research area, which is queer studies in literature, with this environmental humanities ideas that are flourishing here. I started to think about the Highlands and the golden tales and the function of the Icelandic highlands. Actually, I've been thinking about that for years because I used to work as a tour guide. We did tours from here, not to Askja, the volcano. So I did the same tour every day, and I always had a full bus of people, and the job was to tell them about, everything, the volcanoes and the sand and the, the plants and everything. But then on the way home, I told them about folklore. I told them about trolls and outlaws and all these tales about these creatures that were living in the highlands. And then I started just to think about very generally, and I'm certainly not the first person to think about these things, but like I've started to think about the function of these stories, because people seem to have throughout the centuries projected their fears and excitement also of the unknown onto the highlands in Iceland. And then I got excited to think to explore that from a queer perspective, to see if people, if the stories includes a lot of I don't know, unusual characters in terms of gender, for example, and unusual sexual longings or something like that. And we already have an example in the Christmas tradition here. Do you know about the Yule lads, the Christmas trolls? Oh, okay. I could tell you about that for like another hour, but like look it up.
Give you a short version.
So before Christmas, 13 trolls visit all the children in Iceland. They give them presents. This is the 20th century version of these trolls, because they are kind of have been influenced by the Santa Claus. I think they didn't used to give children presents. So we have a lot of folklore stories about a family of trolls that visits people before Christmas. And back in the days, they used to make a lot of trouble, like break into their houses and make some noise and steal things and stuff like that. And there's the 13 sons, and then they have parents, and their mother is actually the most interesting creature in this regard, because their mother is a hideous troll who eats children and cooks them for dinner, and she was used, at least when I was young, as a scarecrow. Like if I was not behaving well, I was told that Grilla would come and take me and eat me. Stuff like that. And then there are apparently all these stories about her, and there's I think an article on the way in publishing now on the queer aspects of this troll, because there's so many stories of her. Some of the stories include descriptions of how manly she is, and I think in some versions she is not female, like her gender is ambiguous. And then she also has these really interesting sexual relationships or family relationships with other trolls, male trolls mostly. And it's just very, very rich kind of imagination around this troll that is definitely not heterosexual, that's for sure. So they're like these things that I'm interested in. And also just to kind of, because we tend to think that queerness is something new that is just being brought into our culture now in the maybe last 30 years or something, but that's definitely not true. The 20th century was probably the most, it was just really focused on rejecting everything queer. It doesn't mean that it didn't exist. People were very focused on rejecting it and hiding it. So I think our job now is to kind of bring back these sources and discuss them, I think.
We can be connected to the great shift, to the great rift that I was talking about post scientific revolution, enlightenment. That after that we have this dualistic thinking, and then
There's a message.
that in a way excluded a lot. Excluded everything that did not fit into the dualistic model, you know. So, queerness did not fit in.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, this is all being fucked up now.
And all the more reason to do research on this and talk about it, and bring queer studies into the both, like I think the academia, of course, but also into just general discussion. I think because we live in quite alarming times, I think, and when it comes to these things, trans issues, for example, in Iceland are under, I don't know what's happening really. It's probably happening similar things as in many other countries, but it's really scary actually what's happening, like the more prejudice and also just like, I don't know, harsh discussion of trans issues and trans people that seem to be mostly informed by fear. Fear of something that people don't, I don't know, want to recognize as a part of their life. And I find that a bit scary. But I think the answer, at least one of the answers, is to just talk more about it, focus more on it, do some more research, and all that.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So some of your work has to do with, it seems like failure is a theme. You referenced the Queer Art of Failure by Jack Halberstam and Elias Marr work. So I'm wondering if there is a connection between the ways of feeling or metamorphizing failure through this lens and into this environmental humanities perspective on nature and the ways we're approaching climate change adaptation. Do you have any philosophical connections?
Well, I actually have, I can just tell you actually about it. It's written in Icelandic, but a friend of mine, Guðrún Elsa, one of my colleagues and good friends, even though I don't remember her last name. You see how focused we are on first names here in Iceland. Bragadóttir, sorry, yes. She wrote an article quite a few years ago about the look or the search for oil in the Norwegian and like the area here north of Iceland and over towards Norway, from the perspective of this failure idea and Halberstam's ideas. And the main conclusion was that if we don't look for oil, if we choose not to look for oil and choose not to participate in that industry, then we are also rebelling, even though our rebellion is just doing nothing, So that's an environmental issue also, to choose not to do certain things. The action is not always doing something, but also choosing not to do something. So I found that really, and I think that's a really helpful approach when it comes to many environmental issues and talks. So, thank you.